Hello, everybody. This is Spot of Nerd with your latest in movie reviews, specifically this time around. But we're going to dive a little bit into something quite unique. And what I kind of mean by that is if you are a fan or if you watch honestly one of the greatest idols I've ever had. Specifically, the actor. I don't know the word. There's words. I'm trying to be smart when I can't think of being smart. But the bottom line is, Fight Like Hell, Louder with Crowder, Steven Crowder, who is, again, probably the number one guy leading the charge right now in fighting the establishment, whether through Mug Club, his his business, obviously the show, so on and so forth. But he's really kind of that spokesperson for a lot of us that feel that we don't have that voice, that we don't have that power. And I've only become a fan of his probably over the last 2 years, and he really is probably one of the greatest inspirations to millions of people out there, to have a voice and to speak out against the government, against the elites, the left, anything that really is kind of related to taking away our God-given rights, our God-given freedoms, because every single day these people are trying to take, and they want control of everything, and it's up to us to make sure that never happens. All they want is control, and all we want is to be left alone. So one of their recent shows, just to give you a little snippet, we'll do the movie review first, and then we'll get into this other portion. But he kind of spoke about some pretty dark, negative things to think about. But at the same time, if you actually do dive a little deeper and think more about what America really is giving to the world right now, it actually makes a lot of sense. And I will, if you're literally just having a giant question mark and asking yourself what the actual fuck is Spot of Nerd talking about right now, I promise it will make sense once we get into it a little bit further. But first, I want to talk about an absolutely incredible horror film I've just seen recently. The movie is called Talk to Me, and you may have seen it. It's not had a lot of publicity, but it is getting a lot of critics advocating for it in terms of being a very good film. And I have to agree. It finally came out on digital, so checked it out. I'm not the biggest horror guy. I mean, if anything, I'm really more of a fan of classic horror, the Freddys, the Jasons, things like that. So I'm not really into the newer stuff. I wasn't a fan of The Nun. I wasn't a fan of like Annabelle, whatever, the doll, creepy doll, Saw. I mean, I guess I was a fan of the earlier Saws, and then it just got ridiculous as the franchise went along. But you realize Saw 10 is coming out in a couple weeks. That's just, it's like it's the Fast and Furious franchise. It's just silly at this point. So yeah, anyway, there's this movie called Talk to Me, and to give it the simplistic without maybe too many spoilers, there's this artifact that these kids in Australia just randomly found. And whenever they hold it and they say the magic words, these spirits, these dead spirits, basically inhabit them. And of course, these kids think it's a joke and think it's, all fun and games, until one of those evil spirits is able to actually take hold of one of the kids and, of course, create mayhem. And the reason I think why it is so good is because it's original. And I think that's why I have to give so much credit to it, was because of the originality of it. This is a story I've never seen before, I've never heard about before. It's very, quote, original, said the fifth time. But my only critique of it, it is a little bit of a slow burn. So if you do go and watch it, you're gonna have to bust through that first 20-25 minutes. They're trying. It's one of those. I think it is a bit of an indie film. It's not really Hollywood, but the bottom line is, I think they were trying a little too hard on the character development in the beginning of the film, which is where that slow burn comes in. But once it gets going, I promise you, it is truly one of the best things you're gonna watch all year. Especially if you are a horror fan. They're not, again, without giving you too many spoilers, they're not going for the scare factor in terms of like the jumping scare, I guess is the best way I can describe it. They're really going for the messed up mental, psychological fucked upness of the film, about basically you say these words and you allow these spirits into your body, and again, they think it's all fun and games, but at the end of it, they end up basically killing themselves. This isn't any spoiler, just metaphorically, because when they've been possessed for so long, it's you either suffer the possession or you suffer the consequences of the possession. So it's kind of that morality factor as well. But no, if you do get a chance, I really do recommend watching Talk to Me. You will probably need to spend the night with the lights on afterwards, and you might need to hold the teddy bear when you go to sleep. Just throwing it out there. At the same time, the teddy bear might be possessed, so be careful. You might not want to say anything specific in case your teddy bear is possessed by an evil spirit who wants to re-inhabit your body and cause chaos in your life, thus resulting in horrible, horrible things to which maybe you might have to start killing other people. Just throwing it out there. But that's just my 2 cents. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, definitely go check the movie out if you can. Highly recommend for the 5th time. If you're not a watcher of this channel or listening, I'm a broken record, so you're just going to have to put up with it. I think it's just reiterating kind of things to make sure I'm not missing anything, but at the same time, I've also had a lot of prescribed medications over my lifetime. I personally think it's definitely taken a little bit of toll on the brain, but at the same time, I think if I talk more about it, even if it is repetitive, hey, just means I remember. I am getting old, so not that old, but definitely old, so we'll see. I'm going off on a complete tangent right now, so yeah, you're gonna have to put up with that. If you like it, I would super appreciate it if you would throw that like down, throw that subscribe down, share where you can, all the good stuff, because that's what you do nowadays, I think, with everything, at least to become popular. So let's get into kind of a little bit more of this is negative, it really is, but at the same time it's realistic. And like I was saying in the beginning of this podcast channel episode, you look back, and I think what makes you think about what we're going to talk about here recently is the unfortunate situation with 9/11. I work where I work, and of course, where I guess the areas that I really kind of make public appearances. I don't really go out much when I don't have to, but the average age is probably realistically 20 to 30 to 40, but I would say a good 70% is easily in the early 20s. And if you think about it, the scary thing is, scary just from a, metaphoric standpoint. These kids were in diapers when 9/11 happened, and it doesn't really, I guess, it's not up to me to decide whether or not something like that impacts you. But again, I was in high school when 9/11 happened, and I still remember it to this day, and I will probably remember it for the rest of my life. So it is a very horrible, horrible thing about what happened. Now you get to today, 2023, especially with everything that we know now, especially with everything that we're fighting so hard for in terms of the truth, in terms of facts, in terms of the tyranny, in terms of just the weaponization of a political system to take out its rivals. I've mentioned this many times before, and I will continue to say it many times in the future, but I never expected, when I was reading textbooks about World War II and the horrific things that Hitler did, I never ever would have expected to see it happen again, to see it occur in real life, let alone the United States. And we are seeing it daily here in the United States. You know, they're going after your children, the sexualization. They're trying to change the word pedophile to make it okay for adults to be acceptable in relation to having sex with children. And it will never be that. To this day, I will fight tooth and nail. If you are an adult and you are sexually attracted to children, you belong in a special place in hell. I am not afraid to say that out loud, because that is just so wrong on so many levels. But that's beside the point of what we're going to talk about. So the last couple episodes of Louder with Crowder, you know, they're talking about the degradation. There's a word. Basically, the downfall of the United States. And as much as we do respect the U.S. and we are proud to be here and we're proud of what it is, you know, back in 2001, you know, on 9/12, America came together as one, and we were, you know, we wanted to get the bad guys, and we wanted to do this and do that, and we were all gung-ho about coming together and making a difference, and we really did. You know, you look at, no matter what year it was, you look at the United States, and the whole purpose of it was to change the world in relation to freedom. You know, every country, every person should have the right to freedom. And then as the years progressed, and this is kind of where Crowder went down this road, we've kind of lost that in relation to the United States. Whenever they would go to a different country, whether through war, diplomatic purposes, was of course to spread freedom. And it wasn't until he brought up the most recent unfortunate events that are taking place right now in Russia and Ukraine. And you're gonna have to bear with me when I say this, because he makes a lot of sense, but you almost have to agree with Putin and Russia. Because, I mean, if you look at the facts right now, just as some examples, Russia literally recently has made sure that any sort of let's just say, I gotta be careful, you know what I mean? And bear with me while I kind of make sure I word this properly. But if you want a child to change, let's just say they want to change something about themselves, Russia has made it illegal for that to happen. Just period. If you're a child, it's never going to happen because it's illegal. And in Russia, anything that's illegal, you can imagine it's not going to be pretty. You want to make sure that you follow the law in Russia. Otherwise, some pretty horrible shit's going to happen to you. So, you know, he's talking about this war, the war with Ukraine and Russia. And you have to kind of agree with the fact that Russia wants nothing to do with it. And what I mean by that in relation to the United States is there are a lot of places, there are people right now who want to make those changes for children. Now, to give reference again, if you're a child, say 3, 4, 5 years old, you need a parent just to have a Tylenol. You need a parent to get a tattoo. You can't even start smoking until you're 18. You can't get a drink until you're 21. And there are certain people that think that they should be able to change certain aspects of themselves. Now, just to make sure, I've said this 1,000 times before, and I will say it 1,000 times more. If you are a legal adult, 18 years or older, I don't give a crap what you do with yourself. That is your business. But if you are a child, it is, quite frankly, the parent's responsibility. I am a firm believer in parent rights. There's been many laws that have been passed recently, specifically in Washington and California, that have now given control to the state, that if you do not allow your child to change, that they can take them away from the parents. And that is a level of evil we have never witnessed before in this country. So it makes you, you have to ask yourself, if you are Putin, if you're Russia right now, you want nothing to do with that. And that is where it's like, wow, it actually kind of snapped into my brain, and I'm thinking, yeah, why would you want that? And it's kind of one of those things where back in 2001, America was, I mean, this is again all metaphor, but they were exporting freedom. What are we exporting now? We're exporting pedophilia. We're exporting sex trafficking. We're exporting a diminishing culture of hatred between two sides. Why would anybody want that? So when you have a war like Ukraine and Russia, and even again, I'll give you another example with Russia, they recently banned all GMOs, genetically modified, I forget what the O stands for, but it's basically, they've banned genetically altered food. So again, it makes you go and you think about on the Putin, the Russia side of things, and you think, yeah, I wouldn't, if there's so much pressure to move towards that. You can even, again, the hypothetical example of electric cars and electric this and electric that. But yet, if you're in California, you can't even run appliances at certain times of the day, yet you want everybody to own an electric vehicle. You can't even handle the system, like from a overall, system standpoint. You can't even handle that. You expect people to get electric cars, blah, 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 blah. Hopefully you can catch on with what I'm saying is, what are we exporting that is benefiting anybody at this moment? Because it sure ain't freedom. It sure ain't, values, morals, everything in between. So basically what we're promoting is, you got to get an electric something, or we'll turn it off. We're going to ban it. We're going to basically tell you that having sex with children is okay. And everything now is decided by social media. If we don't like it, you're a racist and a bigot. If you're a country that's not the United States, and you see and you hear all of that, what is your viewpoint on all of that? If you said, I want nothing to do with that, you're correct. And that is where I've had the biggest mind-blown experience, really, recently, just by watching these latest episodes of Steven Crowder, and he's mentioning these things going on, and I'm kind of going, holy shit. And especially, like I've said, with the 9/11 that just happened recently, it's always kind of a day of sadness and mourning because of the horribleness that happened that day. But you think, I know I'm going down a rabbit hole here, and I know I'm putting my tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist. It's like, as much as it's just one of those things, yes, there is evil in this world with terrorism and things like that, but it's almost like that was the start of it. I mean, you go down the history books of, that was when the Patriot Act came out, which basically gave the government the full green light to be able to access any of your information anywhere at any time. And what was the usual phrase, of course, to allow this to happen? For your own safety. Does that ring a bell? Maybe in the last couple years? With a certain sickness that may have happened in the world? For your own safety. Interesting when that happens. And yet, here's the thing, right? The only time the government or the world can ever really push or force, my favorite word now, obviously being sarcastic, force you to do something, is by an emergency, by a natural, national disaster, etc. Because they ain't going to get you to do it voluntarily. So how else are they going to do it? This is where the conspiracy comes in. They might have to create something. They might have to create an incident. Could be, let's just say, hypothetically, fires to get what they want. It could be wars. to funnel money through. It could be, I don't know, chemical warfare. It could be illnesses. It could be the degradation of the traditional family. Regardless of your orientation. Again, you don't need men anymore in the family. You know, you women power this, women power that. But at the same time, we need more and more control. So it's just, as much as you might be kind of thinking he's rambling or he's just bringing up a lot of cuckoo, wackadoodle stuff, I would encourage you to just kind of take a step back and start thinking about this stuff. Because really, I mean, yes, we are, as Crowder would say, we are fighting like hell every single day. For every mile, we're just getting a few inches, and we will forever continue to fight to make sure that your kids are able to live the freest, fairest lives that they possibly can. But it's getting harder, and it's getting extremely difficult because of, you know, the metaphoric landmines that you have to go around. And it's just something that I wanted to kind of get off my chest through this episode here, because it's blown my mind in relation to, what is the US really giving the world right now? Because if you have to be real, if you have to be honest, the United States right now is not giving very much at all beneficial to the world. And it's really sad to say that. It actually hurts to say that out loud. Like I've said, I'm extremely proud to be here. I'm extremely proud of what America is and its values and everything in between. But my God, it has changed just in the 20 odd years since 9/11. And it has not changed for the better. And my God, I hope something happens to change it back. I really, really do. You know, we'll close this episode out because, again, on an optimistic side, I remember that day, September 12th, 2001. I remember walking outside, going into town, and all you saw was just flags of America, the United States flag. It was everywhere. And you had people walking around just looking at each other going, it's going to be okay. It didn't matter who you were, what you were, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, sure. Were we scared? Were we worried? Absolutely. But we all knew that this was the time we need to come together. And I'll tell you what, if there was a time we need to come together, it is definitely today. Because holy crap, if you really go down that rabbit hole, just as I've said in the last video, episode 175, go down that rabbit hole for 5 minutes, and I promise you, your entire world will flip 180 degrees. It's going to be scary. It's going to be shock. But I'll tell you what, your eyes are going to be more awake than they ever have before. So just throwing it out there. But huge thanks to everybody that continues to watch and continues to listen, of course, to these podcasts. I would not do this without any of y'all, and I really do appreciate everybody that supports and continues to just love what we do here at Spot of Nerds. So we will continue to do it. Until next time, folks, we will see you guys later. Bye-bye.